Look around the room you're sitting in right now. Look at the walls, look at the bank balance you checked this morning. Look at the bills, the numbers, the quiet pressure sitting on your chest. And now, I want you to do something that sounds insane. I want you to ignore all of it, every single piece of it, because everything you are looking at right now is the past. It is finished. It is a photograph of a thought you already had, developed and printed and hung on the wall of your life, and you keep staring at the photograph and begging it to change. It will never change while you stare at it. That is the first thing almost nobody understands about money, and in the next 30 minutes I am going to give you the entire law, not a piece of it, not a technique, the whole thing. By the time this is over, you will understand why money has avoided you, and exactly what to do instead. Neville Goddard said one thing over and over until people got tired of hearing it. He said the world is yourself pushed out. Your world, the money in your account, the opportunities that find you or never find you, the phone that rings or stays silent. All of it is pushed out from one place, and that place is not your hands and it is not your effort. It is your assumption about who you are. You are not manifesting money with your actions. You are manifesting money with your identity. And right now, your identity is built entirely out of what you can see, which means you are trapped in a loop. You see lack, so you feel lack, so you assume lack, so you create more lack, so you see more lack. Around and around. The loop does not break by working harder inside it. The loop breaks the moment you refuse to let what you see decide what you assume. This is why I told you to ignore the 3D. The 3D is the three-dimensional world, the physical evidence, the proof. And here is the part that will make some people angry. The evidence is not the truth. The evidence is the residue. It is what is left over after your old state already happened. When you let the evidence dictate your mood, your words, your sense of what is possible, you are letting a dead thing run your life. You are taking orders from a corpse. The money you do not have yet is not in the 3D. Of course it is not. It has not been printed into your world yet. It only exists right now in one location, and that location is your imagination, occupied as if it were already real. That is not positive thinking. That is the actual mechanism. Everything that has ever appeared in your physical world existed first as an assumption that you accepted as true. Let me make this concrete, because I do not want you to leave with a nice feeling and no understanding. An assumption is a feeling of being. It is not a sentence you repeat. It is not an affirmation you chant 100 times while secretly feeling poor. An assumption is the quiet, settled sense that something simply is. Right now you assume you are a person who has to be careful with money. You do not say it out loud. You do not chant it. You just live from it. You feel it in your stomach when you open the menu and look at the prices on the right side first. You feel it when an opportunity shows up, and your first thought is, what could go wrong? That is an assumption running silently in the background, and it is producing your entire financial life with perfect accuracy. The subconscious does not judge whether the assumption is good for you. It simply takes what you have accepted as true and builds a world to match it. So if a poverty assumption builds a poverty world with perfect accuracy, then a wealth assumption builds a wealth world with the exact same accuracy. The law does not care which one you feed it. This is the part that should set you free and terrify you at the same time. Nothing is happening to you. Everything is happening from you. The same power that kept you broke is the power that will make you rich, and it has been working flawlessly the entire time. You were never failing to manifest. You have been manifesting masterfully. You have just been manifesting the wrong assumption because you let the 3D write it for you. Now watch how the world quietly trains you to keep the broke assumption alive. You wake up, and the first thing you do is check. You check the balance. You check the messages. You check the news about the economy. Every check is you bowing down to the 3D and asking it, please tell me who I am today. And the 3D, being a recording of your past, tells you the same thing it told you yesterday. You are the person from yesterday, and you say thank you, and you carry that identity through the entire day, and at night, you hand it back to the 3D so it can record it again. This is the loop dressed up as being responsible. They told you that staying informed and staying realistic is maturity. It is not maturity. It is a leash. The realistic person is simply someone who has agreed to let the past be the boss of the future. Neville had a phrase for the way out. Live in the end. Not work toward the end. Live in it. Right now. Before there is a single shred of proof. Living in the end means you take the wish, the thing you want, the amount of money, the freedom, the life, and you move into it as a fact that has already happened. You stop asking how. You stop scanning the horizon for it to arrive. You assume it is done, and you let your nervous system relax into a life where it is already true. The man who has the money does not wish for the money. He does not visualize the money. He simply knows, with a boredom that is almost insulting, that the money is handled. That boredom, that casual certainty, that is the state you are trying to reach, not excitement. Excitement is a sign you still believe you do not have it. The goal is the calm of the already done. Here is where most people get stuck, so let me hand you the key. They say, but Neville, how can I feel rich when my account says I am poor? And the answer is the entire law in one sentence. You feel it by giving more reality to your imagination than you give to your senses. That is it. That is the whole game. Your senses say one thing. Your imagination says another. And you, the awareness behind both, get to choose which one you crown as king. Most people crown the senses without even knowing a choice was available. They never realized they were allowed to override the evidence. You are allowed. You were always allowed. The senses are not lying, but they are only reporting the past. Your imagination is reporting the future you are choosing to occupy. When you give the imagination the throne, the senses eventually have no choice but to update their report. The 3D always catches up to the dominant assumption. Always. It is law, not luck. So let me give you the actual practice, because a law you cannot use is just a nice idea. Tonight, before you sleep, you are going to do the most important thing in this entire teaching. The state just before sleep is the doorway. Neville called it the state akin to sleep. In that drowsy, half-gone place, the critical mind goes quiet. The guard at the gate of your subconscious falls asleep at his post, and whatever you walk through that gate with in feeling gets accepted as an instruction. So you will not lie there worrying about money. You will not replay the day. You will construct one short scene, a scene that would only be true if your wish were already fulfilled. Maybe it is a friend congratulating you. Maybe it is the feeling of paying for something without checking the price. Maybe it is simply holding your phone, seeing a number, and feeling nothing but calm because, of course, it is there. You will run that scene. You will feel it as real and you will fall asleep inside it. You are not asking for money. You are rehearsing the identity of someone who already has it until the subconscious mistakes the rehearsal for memory. Before we go deeper into how to hold this when the 3D fights back, and it will fight back, I want you to do one small thing. If even a part of this is landing, if you can feel the shape of it, go to the pinned comment and write the word assumed. Just that one word. Assumed. It is your nervous system putting a stake in the ground, telling itself that something shifted here. And it tells me to make the next part of this teaching, because the next part is where most people quit, and I do not want you to be one of them. So write it, and then come back, because now I am going to show you exactly what to do when reality tests you, and it will. The test always comes. You decide tonight that you are wealthy. You feel it. You sleep in it. And then you wake up and the 3D is waiting for you like it never heard a word you said. The balance is the same. The bill still came. Someone says something that pokes the old wound. And here is the moment that decides everything. In that moment, the 3D is not your enemy. The 3D is the exam. It is asking you one question, and only one. Who are you going to be now that the proof has not arrived? The old you answers immediately with a sigh, with that familiar sinking feeling, see, nothing changed, this never works. And the instant you feel that sinking, you have answered the exam. You have told the law, I am still the broke one, please continue. And it continues. Not to punish you, to obey you, so you have to learn to fail the old test on purpose. When the unwanted appears, you do not fight it, and you do not believe it. You do something stranger and more powerful. You react to it the way the wealthy version of you would react. The man with millions does not panic at a bill. He feels nothing. It is a number. It gets handled. His state does not flinch. So when your bill comes and your chest tightens, you catch it. You notice the old self rising up to take the throne, and you gently, deliberately refuse it. You say, this is just the old reality finishing its sentence. I have already moved. And you return to the assumption, not by forcing a fake smile, by remembering who you decided to be and letting the panic pass through without giving it the steering wheel. Every time you do this, you are starving the old state, and a state that is not fed eventually dies. That is not a metaphor. Your assumptions live on attention and feeling. Stop feeding the broke one, keep feeding the rich one, and the math does the rest. This is why I tell you so bluntly to ignore the 3D. I do not mean be irresponsible. I do not mean stop paying your bills or quit your job tomorrow on a feeling. Ignoring the 3D is an inner act. It means you stop letting the outer condition write your inner state. You can pay the bill and still refuse to become the person the bill wants you to be. You can see the low balance and still walk through your day as the one for whom money is no longer a question. The action happens. The identity does not bend. That is the discipline. Most people have it exactly backwards. They keep their broke identity rigid and try to change their actions, hustling and grinding and forcing, and they wonder why nothing moves. You change the identity and let the actions reorganize themselves around the new person. The right moves, the right ideas, the right people start showing up, not because you chase them, but because they belong to the person you have become. Opportunity is drawn to the assumption, not to the effort. Let me destroy the biggest objection now, the one that keeps people circling for years. They say, this feels like lying to myself. How can I claim something that is not true? Listen carefully. You are already claiming something that is not true. Right now you are claiming you are poor, when poor is just a temporary condition that your own assumption is holding in place. The lack is not more true than the wealth. It is just more familiar. It has more evidence behind it only because you have been assuming it longer. Truth in this law is not what currently appears. Truth is what you are faithful to. Whatever you remain faithful to in feeling against all evidence becomes the new truth and produces its own evidence. So you are not lying when you assume wealth. You are simply choosing which truth to grow. The poor man and the rich man are both telling themselves a story. The only difference is which story they refuse to abandon when the world disagrees. Now I want to talk about desire, because people carry so much shame around wanting money, and that shame is leaking into their manifestation and poisoning it. They were taught that wanting money is greedy, that spiritual people should not care about it, that there is something pure about struggling. Drop all of it right now. The desire for money is not low. The desire is the future tapping you on the shoulder. Neville said your desire is God in you, telling you what is possible for you. The very fact that you want it is the proof that it is meant for you, because you cannot desire something that you have no capacity to receive. The wanting is the seed. But here is the trap. Wanting and worrying look almost identical, and they produce opposite results. When you want from a place of lack, every thought of money reminds you that you do not have it, and you reinforce the absence. When you want from a place of having, the thought of money is a warm confirmation, and you reinforce the presence. Same desire, two completely different states. The work is to move the desire out of the hungry place and into the satisfied place, to want it the way you want to revisit something you already own. So how do you hold the satisfied state through a whole day, not just for 2 minutes before sleep? This is where the real practitioners separate from the dabblers. You build a wealthy inner conversation and you guard it like your life depends on it, because your financial life actually does. All day long there is a conversation running inside your head. It never stops. And almost all of it for the broke person is defensive, anxious, complaining, comparing, calculating from fear. That inner talk is the assumption broadcasting itself non-stop. Neville said to change your life, you must change your inner conversations, so you start catching them. When you notice the inner voice saying, I cannot afford that, you stop, and you let the wealthy self respond instead. The wealthy self does not say, I cannot afford it. The wealthy self does not even think in those terms. It thinks that is easily handled and moves on without drama. You are not faking. You are rehearsing the mental life of the person you are becoming until it stops being rehearsal and becomes your default. The day belongs to whoever controls the inner conversation, and for the first time you are taking the controls. There will be silence. Long stretches where you have assumed the new state, and absolutely nothing in the outer world has confirmed it. This is the most dangerous valley, and it is where almost everyone turns back. They assume for a week, a month, and because the 3D has not rearranged itself yet, they decide it failed, and they crawl back to the old identity, just in time to abort the very thing that was forming. Understand what is happening in that silence. The silence is not nothing. The silence is gestation. When you plant a seed, the ground looks dead for a long time before the first green appears. If you dig it up every few days to check, you kill it. Your assumption is the seed. The waiting period is the soil doing its invisible work, rearranging circumstances, moving people, opening doors that you cannot see from where you stand. Your only job in the silence is to remain unmoved. To keep being the one who already has it, with the casual faith of a man who planted good seed and simply expects the harvest. The ones who get rich with this law are not the ones who feel it the strongest. They are the ones who refuse to unassume it when the world stays quiet. Let me give you a way to measure your progress that has nothing to do with your bank balance, because if you only measure by the balance, you will quit before it turns. The real measure is your reaction. In the beginning, bad financial news drops you instantly. A bill, an unexpected cost, a number lower than you hoped, and you are on the floor. As the new assumption takes root, you will notice something. The same news comes, and it does not knock you down the way it used to. You feel the tug, but you do not fall. Later, the same kind of news comes and you barely register it, because it simply does not match who you now know yourself to be, so your mind discards it as irrelevant. That growing immunity is the assumption hardening into fact inside you. That is the harvest beginning on the inside before it ever shows up on the outside. Watch your reactions, not your balance. When the lack stops being able to scare you, the lack has already lost. People ask how long they want a number. How many days until the money comes? And the honest answer is that the question itself is keeping it away. Asking how long is a confession that you do not yet have it, that you are still waiting, still in the future, still assuming absence. The man who lives in the end does not ask how long because for him it is already done, and you do not ask when something is going to happen that has already happened. So the practical instruction is brutal and simple. Stop counting the days. Every time you catch yourself wondering when, recognize it as the old self checking the oven and return to the calm assumption of the finished state. The fulfillment does not come on a date. It comes when the assumption has become so natural that you have forgotten you ever assumed it. The moment you no longer need it to come is usually the moment it arrives, because by then you have fully become the person it belongs to. Now let me tie the whole law together so you carry it as one piece and not a pile of tips. Your world is your consciousness pushed out. What you assume yourself to be, you experience. The 3D is the past, a printout of old assumptions, and it has no power to create your future unless you keep feeding it your faith. Money is not the cause of a wealthy state, it is the effect of one. So you stop chasing the effect and you become the cause. You decide right now who you are independent of every number and every wall and every bill in your current world. You build the scene of the wish fulfilled and you sleep in it nightly. You guard your inner conversation through the day, letting the wealthy self speak. When the 3D tests you, and it will, you fail the old test on purpose and refuse to react as the broke one. You wait through the silence without digging up the seed, and you measure your progress by how little the lack can move you. Do that and the law has no choice. It never had a choice. It has been obeying you flawlessly your entire life. You are simply, for the first time, going to give it the right command. I want to go deeper now into the two words that sit underneath this entire law, because if you grasp them, everything else becomes effortless. The two words are, I am. Every assumption you have ever made begins there, whether you noticed it or not. I am tired. I am broke. I am the kind of person who never catches a break. I am bad with money. Each of those is a creative command, and you have been issuing them all day long without knowing you were casting spells on your own life. Neville pointed straight at this. He said, whatever you attach to I am, you summon into being. The phrase I am is the name of the creative power inside you, and it is unconditional. It does not check whether the statement is currently accurate. It does not ask the bank for permission. It simply takes whatever follows it and begins the work of making it so. So the single most important habit you will ever build is to guard what you attach to those two words. The poor man says, I am broke, and feels it, and the law says, so be it. The man becoming rich catches himself and changes the sentence and means it. I am wealthy. I am the one for whom money flows. I am taken care of. He does not say it as a hope. He says it as a fact he is settling into, and the power that made him poor now has no choice but to make him rich, because it only ever spoke his name back to him. Let me show you how subtle the broke I am is, because it hides inside sentences that sound responsible. I am just being realistic. That is an I am. You just told the creative power that your identity is bound to current appearances, and it obeyed. I am trying to manifest money. Listen to that one closely because almost everyone says it and it is quietly fatal. Trying. The person who is trying to have money has assumed, in the same breath, that he does not have it. The word trying is a confession of absence. You do not try to be what you already are, so you have to catch even that. You drop trying entirely. You do not try to manifest wealth. You assume you are wealthy and you let the trying dissolve, because trying belongs to the one who believes he is separated from what he wants. The end you are living in has no trying in it. It only has having. Now I want to give you a tool that Neville taught that almost nobody uses, and it is one of the most powerful things in the entire law. He called it revision. Here is the idea. Your past is not fixed, not the way you think it is. The events happened, yes, but the events have no power over you. What has power over you is the assumption you formed because of them. Every time you remember a moment where money humiliated you, where you were turned down, where you felt the shame of not having enough, you are not just remembering, you are reliving it, and you are renewing the assumption it created. You are pouring fresh feeling into the very state you are trying to leave. Revision is the deliberate undoing of that. At the end of the day, you take a moment that went wrong, a moment where you felt the lack, and you replay it in your imagination the way you wish it had gone. You do not pretend it did not happen. You overwrite the feeling. You imagine the conversation going the way the wealthy you would have experienced it. You feel the relief of it. And by doing this, you are not lying about history. You are pulling the emotional charge out of the old assumption, and you are feeding the new one. Do this nightly with the moments that sting, and you will be amazed how the past loosens its grip and how the future starts to bend because you have stopped renewing your contract with lack. People want me to be specific about money, so let me be specific. Imagine the exact amount you want. Pick it. Not a vague more, a number. Because the law responds to definiteness, not to wishful fog. A man who says, "I want to be rich," has given the law nothing to build. A man who has assumed a precise reality, who knows what his life feels like at that level, has given the law a blueprint. So you choose the figure, and then you do the real work, which is not chasing the figure but rehearsing the life that contains it. What does your morning feel like when that money is simply normal? What do you no longer check? What do you no longer flinch at? What becomes boring that used to terrify you? You live in those details. The specificity is not so the universe can deliver an exact number like an order form. The specificity is so your nervous system can actually move into the state, because a vague wish cannot be inhabited and a detailed life can. You are not placing an order. You are relocating your sense of self into a fully furnished future and refusing to move back out. Here is something that will save you years of confusion. You do not have to know how. In fact, the more you try to figure out how, the more you broadcast that you do not believe it is done. The how is not your department. The how is the part the subconscious handles, and it has resources you cannot see and routes you would never plan. When you assume the end and then immediately start worrying about the mechanism, you yank the seed out of the ground to inspect its roots. Your job is the what and the who. What life, what state, who you are now. The how is the law's job, and it is infinitely better at it than your anxious planning mind. The bridge of incidents that carries you from here to there will be built out of events that feel natural, even ordinary when they arrive. A conversation, a sudden idea, a person who shows up. You will be tempted to call it coincidence. It is not coincidence. It is the assumption hardening into circumstance, exactly as the law promises, walking toward you on legs you did not have to design. Let me confront the fear directly, because fear is the real currency of the broke state. Underneath the money worry is almost always a fear that says, it is not safe to assume good things, because if I get my hopes up and it does not happen, I will be crushed. So people protect themselves by expecting the worst, thinking they are being smart, thinking low expectations cannot hurt them. But the law does not reward your defensive crouch. It simply gives you what you assume, and you have assumed disappointment as a shield, so disappointment is what you get to keep. There is no safe lack. The caution is not protecting you from anything. It is manufacturing the very outcome you are bracing for. So you might as well assume the best, because the assumption is creating regardless of which one you pick. And at least the wealthy assumption builds a wealthy world, while the fearful one only builds more reasons to be afraid. Courage here is not a feeling. It is a decision to assume the good in a world that has given you no proof, simply because you finally understand that the proof comes after the assumption. never before. I want to talk about other people, because this is where the broke state hides its deepest roots. You have been letting other people's opinions of your finances define you, the relative who thinks you are foolish, the friend who is realistic on your behalf, the voice that says, "Who do you think you are to want that much?" Every time you absorb one of those, you let someone else write your "I am." Neville was ruthless about this. He said you must dare to assume yourself to be the man you want to be, even when the whole world insists you are not. The crowd will always vote for the version of you they have already met. They are not being cruel. They are simply reflecting your old assumption back at you, because that is the only you they have evidence for. Your job is not to convince them. You will never argue someone into seeing the wealthy you before the 3D shows it. Your job is to assume it so completely that you stop needing their agreement, and one day they will treat you as the wealthy one, not because you persuaded them, but because your state changed, and they had no choice but to respond to the new broadcast. People are mirrors of your dominant assumption. Change the assumption and watch the mirrors change what they show. Let me address the moment of doubt that comes at 3 in the morning, the one where the whole teaching feels like a fairy tale, and the bills feel like the only thing that is real. That moment is not a sign that the law is false. That moment is the old state making its last and loudest stand. A habit does not die quietly. The broke assumption has run your life for years, maybe decades, and it does not surrender its throne without a fight. So when the doubt comes screaming that this will never work, recognize it for what it is. It is not wisdom, it is withdrawal. It is the old identity starving and begging you to feed it one more time. And in that exact moment, you have the most power you will ever have, because to refuse it there at its loudest is to break its back. You do not argue with the doubt. You do not try to win the debate. You simply return again to the quiet assumption of the finished thing, and you let the storm pass without giving it a single meal. Every time you survive one of those nights without abandoning your state, the old self loses a piece of its strength that it never gets back. And understand the nature of the power you are working with, because it changes how seriously you take this. The same imagination that you have used to terrify yourself, to rehearse disasters, to feel the humiliation of a future that had not even happened. That same imagination is the creative force itself. You are not weak at manifesting. You have been a master at it the whole time, manifesting in the wrong direction with breathtaking consistency. Think of how vividly you can imagine something going wrong. The detail, the feeling, the certainty. Now imagine pointing that exact faculty at the life you want, with the same vividness and the same certainty. That is all this is. You are not learning a new ability. You are taking the most powerful thing you already own and finally aiming it on purpose. The person who manifests poverty and the person who manifests wealth have identical equipment. One has simply turned the lens around. So gather it all into a single practice you can carry out of this video and use tonight. Through the day, you guard the 2 words, refusing to attach lack to I am, and quietly attaching the life you want instead. You catch the inner conversation and let the wealthy self do the talking. When the 3D shoves its evidence in your face, you stay unmoved, paying the bill with your hands while keeping your identity intact. At night, you revise the moments that stung, draining the charge out of the old assumption, and then in the doorway of sleep, you enter one short scene of the wish already fulfilled, and you fall asleep inside it, handing the subconscious its instruction in the only language it truly hears, which is feeling. You do that not once, not for a dramatic week, but until it is simply who you are. And the silence in between, the part where nothing seems to be happening, you treat as sacred ground where the seed is doing its hidden work, and you refuse, absolutely refuse, to dig it up. So here is what I want from you before you go. The 3D in front of you right now is the strongest argument against everything I just said. Your job, starting tonight, is to make your assumption a stronger argument than your evidence. Decide who you are, and then refuse to be talked out of it by a world that is only showing you your own past. If this cracked something open, tell me in the comments what you are choosing to assume from today. Write it as if it is already done, because the moment you declare it, you make it harder to abandon. And come back to the channel, because I am going to keep handing you the rest of this piece by piece, until being wealthy on the inside is simply who you are and the outer world has no choice left but to agree. Ignore the 3D, assume it is done, and let the world catch up to the new you.